Welcome, everybody. My name is Bernard Kovac, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our panel conversation today about tech activism, the next frontier of social movement. My name is Bernard Kovac, the head of the World Food Programme's Innovation Accelerator, and I'm joined here today by a panel of distinguished innovators and experts from the innovation ecosystem that will talk with me today about why activism is important and also technology can help us to take this to the next level. And it could be more important than in times right now when we're seeing COVID-19 and the aspect of a pandemic out there. How could technology help us in this regard? And we were initially supposed to have this panel in South by Southwest, but also why not do this virtually as a conversation now online? Now, with no further ado, let me actually give over the word to my fellow panelists to have them introduce themselves. Xenia, over to you.
Hi there. Hi, Bernard. Hi, Thomas. So good to see you guys. Welcome to my home in the mountains in Colorado, and thrilled to be having this discussion with you. Hello, everybody who's watching. I'm Xenia Tata. I'm the Chief Impact Officer at the Xprize Foundation. And basically what that means is that I have the distinct privilege of designing the Xprizes that we put out and also doing our future foresight work. So every day, whether it's a pandemic or not, we are looking out on the forefront of technology, looking at what technology and trends will be in the next 10 to 20 years and trying very hard to pull that preferred future forward for the rest of us. So thanks for listening today. Thanks for joining us. Thomas?
Yeah, thank you, Xenia. So hi, I'm Thomas. I'm product director at Google, focusing mostly on building experiences on our laptop platform, what we call Chromebooks. And so I've been very excited to be part of this panel today to share some of our ideas in this space, also some of the really cool partnerships that we've kicked off with Bernhard and the team at the World Food Programme, and talk a little bit more about where we at Google as a broad organization are basically charting the path for supporting the United Nations and specifically World Food Programme with their new innovation accelerator ideas and efforts.
Well, thank you. I'm really looking forward to this conversation and also to have a broader audience engage with us afterwards. And maybe just to kick it off straight away, the conversation about activism couldn't be more relevant than in these times. We've seen a lot of that with Fridays for Future, where young people go out and they protest and they actually make their voices heard. Now, so we know and we've seen that it's possible to change the world. Xenia, how do you see technology, changing that? What's the way that going forward with this?
Well, we've been seeing this trend for quite a long time, right? And now with COVID and the social distancing, we're going to see even more of an uptick. I mean, I remember 5-7 years ago in India, where I'm from, looking at trends in techno-activism, where apps like Safety Pin were helping women keep each other safe in big cities. So these trends have been going on for a while. It's wonderful in the last year to see this move to the youth movement, and especially to the youth climate change movement, which has been extremely powerful. This is a great way to assemble communities and mobilize them. But what we're also seeing and what we're leveraging for the last year or two at Xprize is not only to do this to mobilize people around a certain cause, but also to mobilize thought leadership and the intelligentsia, the experts, if you will, from around the globe around a certain topic. So no longer do you need to interview a bunch of experts if you're doing some deep research into a topic. No longer do you need to worry about all these time zones or travel different places to talk to people. You can have these vibrant online communities of hundreds of experts, both traditional and non-traditional experts, communicating and creating all together. So we've been seeing this for a while, and I love to see this uptick now, especially, and as this trend continues into the future.
No, this is really exciting, especially thinking about online platforms. This is something that we are seeing as well, that more and more people actually want to engage, and it's so much more powerful to actually reach people in an online platform, which actually brings us to Thomas and like the work that you're doing over at Google. I mean, maybe from like Google's perspective, also your work like with, you know, Chromebooks and other things, like how do you think technology empowers people? Like, is that something that's an empowerment as well, or is it just about the activation?
Yeah, I think what I mean, there's a lot of stuff we could talk about what Google is doing in this space, but I'm probably best to start with what's closest to me, which is giving people access to computing and not making this a privilege of the, you know, the top 10% and top 1%. I feel like what we found is, I've worked for a long time in Android before joining the Chromebooks team, and in both cases, it was fascinating to see that we were always tackling that fundamental challenge of people not being able to afford just things we take for granted in our daily lives, which is how do you get access to basic services online? How do you actually find out about it? How do you learn? How do you just acquire new skills? And without really having capital, right? Having the money to actually buy expensive devices. And computing has always been something that for a long time has been dominated by very few players. And we thought this is something we just have to address. Mobile has had this fundamental rise, and we saw what we're doing in Android on the smaller screens that have had this phenomenal rise. But we realized this is not enough. We actually have to invest also as it comes to what we call these productivity devices, where you actually can often get much more work done. To actually be in a space and can, you know, as we all know, in front of our laptops, we are able to actually do work, we do our jobs, right? And the challenge was that we found for a long time is that having a laptop was basically this privileged thing. It's very expensive, and the Xprize has been trying to address this, right? And in that organizations too, to say, yes, it's great for you to have a phone, to have something first gadget into the digital world, but doing something much more on enabling a device where you can learn, where you can be productive. And so for us, Chromebooks has been this space where we say, you don't have to put $500, $1,500 on the table to get access to basically compute at the end, is how we call it. And we make it much more affordable, make it much more approachable. So I think devices is one piece, devices combined with software and on the basic operating system level, and then the services on top. And so that's where we then came in with the Well Through program and said, we have done this with schools all over the world, especially in the US. We've seen great success with an affordable solution that school districts were able to adopt very quickly, very easily. And then we would talk to you, Bernard, on your team to say, how can we take this much further, and started the project with the refugee camp. And this has showed me, and it's been really inspiring to see how quickly we were able to take this technology, very affordable, a lot of devices to lots of users really quickly, and roll this out and really affect their lives. And I can talk a little bit more about that later on, where just having this device, having access to technology changes the game immediately. And it actually doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter if you're in the refugee camp in Kenya, or you are, you know, somewhere in the States and stuck at home. Ultimately, just providing this access to technology can give people the opportunity to learn, to just improve their lives, but ultimately also to make a living. And this has been really inspiring.
No, and it's totally true. Like specifically when you think about the aspect of what can you possibly do with purely just like devices. One thing, and this is, I also happen to be the co-founder of an app called Share the Meal. So like it's people can download it and actually like press a button on their phone. And the basic idea behind that was, you know, there's so many people out there, also young people who care about this planet, people who really want to change the world, but they don't know how. How can we make this more accessible? And this was one of the starting points of that. It's like, where, you know, why don't we create an app where there's a button on your phone that says, you can share a meal for 50 cents, you can feed a child for a day. And right now it's already over 2 million people who are using the app, which is amazing. It's over 67 million shared meals. So over $30 million that have been shared, which is an astounding effect that we see. Like, and it's something like where people would have always called me like, well, that's crazy. Like, why would you do that? Like 50 cents are meaningless in the fight against hunger. But like together we can do things like ending hunger. And this is what I feel is really powerful as well, in terms of like, you know, this is how a movement can also come together and actually like change something. Then maybe Xenia, why don't we take it then further, right? So I mean, we've talked about like today, we've talked about like your view now. Now maybe taking in the most recent developments of the pandemic, COVID-19. How does that change the innovations we need? Do we need more moonshot innovations? Do we need more what I would call social impact unicorns? Like, what is it that we're working towards? Like, what will help us make this step change?
Well, I'm always partial to moonshots, so I would say we always need moonshots. However, I think right now, more than anything else, is a time for slingshots, not just moonshots. So let me explain what I mean by slingshot. So a slingshot comes from Slingshot Theory, where if you are just really quick little physics lesson, but if you are launching a spacecraft into space, say you're going to the moon, you actually use the gravitational pull of the Earth to further propel your spacecraft, right? So that's what a slingshot theory is all about. So I want us to think about slingshots versus moonshots. Now is the time to use the gravitational pull of trends, big global mega trends, all right? And to also fuel our spacecraft, if you will, fuel our rocket ship with the current crises that is happening, the zeitgeist, right, of our times, basically. And then take a slingshot to propel us a lot further than we would have gone in any case. What does that actually practically look like? It could look like home-based testing kits that are extremely cheap. It could we could be looking at N95 mask filters, just where the filter can be popped out and exchanged. And those can be completely biodegradable, right? Or it could be a slingshot for the future of work to help a whole bunch of people, especially the most vulnerable of them all, to reskill rapidly and to get jobs in the professions of the future or slightly in the future, not the professions of the past, right? So I feel that now more than ever is a time for us to think about slingshots and to actually design them and take them. Because these are the projects, these are the efforts, that will get funded very quickly, that will be agile enough and also not need possibly a lot of startup money. You can bootstrap this fairly quickly and you can get things going. But now's not the chance, not the time for all of us to sit on our hands. Now's the time to actually design and do things.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we also see the same thing. It's like sometimes people may think, is innovation relevant in a crisis? And most definitely, yes. Innovation is about like making things quicker than other people would normally do it, and like learning faster and making sure that you have more impact on a short-term basis. Like, and it's the same that we see at the World Food Program, that our field operations actually on a day-to-day basis, they have to innovate. They have to actually adapt to these kind of challenges where it's like, maybe there's a border closure, maybe there is import restrictions, like maybe there's social distancing. How do you do that in a in somewhere? It might be like informal settlement, a slum somewhere. That how do you social distance there? And like, so people, I mean, in our case, have been innovating also with using technologies at times, like, for instance, like the team in our Somalia operation, they have actually developed something like an e-shop, which is like an Uber Eats for people, like vulnerable people, to order food right now. Which is, if you think about it, like, why couldn't you do that before? And it's like, well, I guess technology wasn't there, which brings us to Thomas. Like, so now we're like, just like talk about technology and like where all of that leads us, right? Like, and I mean, also linking it up with like Xenia, like, the future of work, like what do we need? What do we need right now to move us forward?
I actually would, so I really like the idea of slingshots, but at the same time, I would say oftentimes what's been keeping us from just accelerating this was just, it wasn't inertia. It wasn't, the technology has been there for a while, actually, for many of these things. It's more about getting organizations to change and getting people to realize that if you just give it a try, if you take it this, what people might perceive as a little bit of risk or just not really worth the change, then actually a lot of things can happen really quickly. I feel like that crisis that we're going through right now, which is, we're still very much going through, is an opportunity here because people are forced to change. People have no choice. We've seen some crazy things happening where we have millions of students being sent home overnight and said, like, as of tomorrow, you're gonna get homeschooled, and this is gonna happen. Or as of tomorrow, you might have your teacher dialing in from somewhere with some things, right? And then we have seen teachers teach the class via WhatsApp, and it somehow miraculously works. And then we had another student group just go like, well, now we're just sharing things in a Google Doc, and somehow we collaborate, and the outcome's an essay. And we were able to make it work, even though before everybody had to sit in the class for 60 minutes and hand something in on that piece of paper, because that was the only way we were able to do it. And so in some ways, I really like that we see this acceleration of trends that actually benefits so many people. That the fact that all of a sudden you don't have to commute, you break down barriers of, it doesn't matter which part of town you live in. Like, it's just equalized in some ways, right? And to a certain degree, we've seen that equalize, especially through education, happen really quickly. At the same time, I think our job, at least for me and my team, has been to make sure that it's not just the people who happen to have that laptop already, or they happen to be in the right school district to get the device home. So we actively working on making sure these devices stay affordable. We get them to the students at scale, and people can actually dial in. That one thing is still the same. Like, if you don't have access to the device, if you have to go to your library or borrow your device from your brother or sister, it's still not going to be the same. But totally, I think, building on Tina's slingshot idea, I think there's so many really exciting things we can do right now. And you'll see that some of these services are just going to see this skyrocketing growth. I mean, Zoom is probably the best example. We're all using it right now, and it's just been on such a rocket ship, because everybody needs that fundamental layer of technology to have exchange of ideas, communication in real time. But there's so many cool things we can build on top. And I think education is one we're putting a lot of thought into, how we can make that easier, how we connect digital classrooms. But you're seeing in other areas, just how people collaborate, how they're building things, how they don't actually have to be in the same place anymore, and still are extremely productive. It's fascinating to see. And so I think we're going to see a lot more happening in this space. And the technology in many instances is actually not the thing that's keeping people from it. It's just being open to just embracing it, because so many tools have been there, and some companies have been much faster in adopting it than others.
So Xenia, what do you think? Technology is there? We don't need new technology, or?
I think, Bernard, and I'd love your take on this, that there's nothing, the point here is that there's nothing like a crisis to fuel human ingenuity,
100%.
right? I mean, there's also, and I believe that a crisis doesn't only fuel human ingenuity, it also fuels human compassion. It fuels human empathy at this massive global scale, right? Yes. So now, it's up to us and everybody else as well, of course, but I'd love to hear what World Food Program thinks about this, Bernard, from your perspective, is that how do we ride this wave of human ingenuity, of global empathy, to actually create transformations once and for all to end issues like hunger on our planet.
It's a very relevant and very challenging question at the same time. I mean, it's something where actually most recently our executive director went in front of the UN Security Council to publicly announce that the latest bottom-up national estimates in terms of acutely hungry people, so people that might be dying from hunger, from multiple famines, and that number of people will go up from 130 million people to 265 million people by the end of this year. That's the kind of the forecast right now, which is, I mean, it's actually really shocking numbers also in terms of reversal of the progress that had been made previously. So part of that is COVID, part of that is because of negative side effects of border closure, trade restrictions, people who are working in informal jobs no longer have an income, and therefore they become hungry. Therefore, they become actually vulnerable for this. So like the problems are actually like really severe, and like I mean, on the one hand, like we as World Food Programme, we are preparing for, you know, for the worst in terms of like if that actually happens. So like pre-positioning food, like 3 months worth of food, and also cash in some of the countries where this is forecasted to happen. At the same time, we're also looking into like, you know, what are the innovations and the problem that we happen to solve right now that will actually help us even going further, right? And this is where I totally agree with you. Like there is the impetus of the challenge and the crisis right now. Some of the things that we'll put in place, maybe devices. We're looking at an innovation that's, for instance, like in modern child nutrition, where there's a tool called CODA, where we use smartphone and a near field communication card, and like we are actually expanding that program for different other use cases to see, you know, that digitization of the program can mean the step change for the future, not just for right now in this COVID crisis, but going further. And like, I think there's lots of opportunities that can come out of the crisis, even for the most vulnerable. But I think we also need to be fair that sometimes the challenges are just completely different. So like a lot of the people who are already like undernourished, malnourished, are already affected by health issues. We know this, like if you, let's say if you're living in an informal settlement and you're cooking in like the small informal settlement, you may already have respiratory issues and health problems. Like, so definitely like that's, those are populations that we really have to take care of. And, but linking this with the topic of our panel, actually, like I also think that's where a lot of the power of entrepreneurship and startups can come in. So right now, what we're looking into, for instance, is how can we link up the problems that we're seeing on a local basis in South Sudan, in Somalia, in Kenya, in Bangladesh, in Colombia, like across the globe in developing countries, with like, how can we matchmake that with solutions that are already existing that can be adapted and that can actually change people's lives there. And where you get back into like, okay, it's totally linked to available like technology and solutions and deploying them with the entrepreneurial mindset and like people who have the brains and the willpower to do so.
So Bernard, can you maybe give us an example of one of the projects you mentioned, CODA? What happened as a result of COVID, or what are some of the things that you saw that you had to change in how you approached the problem?
So
kind of bring it to life a little bit.
Maybe to give you an example, so like we've been supporting like one of the innovations called Building Blocks, actually went through our accelerator program, which uses blockchain for e-wallets for refugees. It was active for 100,000 people in Jordan already, like processing about $3 million of cash transfers for people every month. And so what that does in Jordan, the original concept was so people can go into a shop, pay with the iris scan, and authenticate a blockchain transaction.
That's crazy. I mean, this would be unheard of here. Like in any developed nation, and you just rolling this out like it's nothing in Lebanon. It's definitely.
And so like our colleagues actually like in the field, like actually in the team has just actually expanded that in Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh for Rohingya refugees. In there, they have already adapted this to the use case of COVID-19. So instead of like using a fingerprint for authentication, they're now using a QR code on a smart card. And so like you can actually even have the social distancing while you're paying in the shop. And this is where like I think the quick adaptation is important. Like not only it's technology that allows you to do things more efficiently, but it's also something where it can cater to people's needs and even have more benefits for them.
Because this is, for example, something I would worry about, right? I think we're seeing this here now. A lot of businesses in the United States stop taking cash because it's just not, it's considered dirty. You just don't want to engage with it anymore, right? But that directly then hurts the unbanked, which is a huge population in the States, that actually then can't really adjust. And so it's very interesting to see you with the people that they needed the most in the refugee camps go all the way to basically contactless payments, which is fascinating. And so how do you get that? How do you get it in the hands of your basically, I guess, your customers, the people that actually need it most? Like how do you roll this out? Like basically you hand out the cards you said with barcodes?
I mean, it's like, this is always a question of partnerships and like actually working with the right people. So like in our case, like, I mean, I'm now the head of our World Food Programme Accelerator. We're based in Munich in Germany, but like we have, the World Food Programme has a network of over 83 country offices where we reach about 100 million people globally right now. And this is where like our colleagues in the field, they are doing a lot of the relevant work, like working with the local communities, with NGOs, with the government, with the communities. And making sure to actually that this is rolled out, and like depending on what travel is possible. I mean, World Food Programme actually also operates the supply chain backbone of the COVID-19 response. So like we are flying in and out people and humanitarian aid workers in certain countries right now. So like there is an element of like, you know, ability to deliver in some of the developing countries, which I think is a very relevant thing, which is like, at least also where a lot of our conversations, like with Xenia or also with you, Thomas, was about like, how can we bring technology together with some of these really big problems in developing countries?
Right. And you know, the international development community, we've known this for a very long time, that some of the, what most people would consider the poorest on the planet, are actually not at all techno averse. They, at that grassroots level even, which is very relevant to our topic today, you know, will adopt technology very quickly and will not just learn from it, but will evolve it to meet their needs. Because for them, a lot of the times, the technology is a shorter cut for their survival, you know? And so it offers a shortcut, you know, for their daily needs. And so it becomes, whether you see it with smallholder farmers, or you see it with maternal neonatal health providers or frontline healthcare workers, you know, they will adopt this very quickly and spread it very, very fast, because it is the difference between surviving another day or rather surviving another day and thriving another day. You know, that's the actual difference there.
Right. I would love to learn more on the Xprize side. Do you have projects now as a result of the COVID crisis that you're investing more in, that you're pushing more, and to bring this to life for our audience?
Yeah, actually we are. We launched a pandemic alliance, so with Anthem. And that's going really well. And we're, you know, ideating around multiple prizes in that space. My favorite one that I'm working on right now is a vaccine deployment plan. It is not an Xprize, but it's more like a logistics and supply chain prize. You know, in terms of understanding, like you pick a scenario. So we'll have a couple of different scenarios, because deploying vaccine for 1.3 billion people in India is going to be very different than 400 million people in the US or in Europe, right? So what is, so everything from, you know, the cold chain, and the supply lines to actually inoculation, right? It could be an oral vaccine, it could be another kind of vaccine. So the delivery mechanism, it would be a little separate, but we're just focusing on the logistics of how are we going to vaccinate 7.3 billion people on our planet. And the reason why this is so fundamentally important is because we're going to see, we could see a revolution on a scale we've not seen before. If there is some kind of uneven distribution, this would be a true test of haves and have-nots on a really global scale. So again, that's one of the things that we're working on. We're also, you know, dabbling in home-based testing kits. We're dabbling in N95 masks, but more like a high school competitions, possibly that, you know. So we are definitely trying to do a lot on the COVID side. However, I also want to add that a lot of our portfolio is around climate change at Xprize. And we have not stopped that march. We cannot forget that issue. That is one of the biggest existential threats or critical threats to humanity. And
so I was going to go there, like, so like, so I'm assuming also, because like about activism, like I'm assuming you also see like strong engagement on like everything that's related to like climate change, like nature, environmental factors. Like I'm curious, like what's happening on that side from you?
Are you asking me?
Yes, Xenia, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everything's gone a bit quiet. You see little spurts in the media here and there. We certainly are seeing the funding toned down or being put on hold for climate. But we have some really audacious, like super cool stuff that is designed and ready to go in carbon capture. How are we going to move, at gigaton scale, carbon from our atmosphere and then sequester it? And how are we going to do it both to bring into balance, our natural Earth's carbon cycle, but also do it in both ways through Earth's natural systems, so through regenerative agriculture, tree planting, etc., but also through engineered systems, right? Big carbon capture kind of systems as well. So we've got a massive prize there, and we've got one in coral reef restoration that we're hoping to get funded. So again, we've got a lot of super exciting prizes, a rainforest prize that launched to actually survey and map all 4 stories of the Amazon in record time. But everything's gone really quiet on that front. And it's really sad to see that. And it's time to wake up that giant again, in my opinion. The way to do it is with these grassroots level kind of noise-making movements, like through social media. Sorry, Thomas.
It's really interesting, right? I'm curious myself, like, what is the right time to get people, like, to wake people up again and say, like, yes, we know things are very difficult right now, and you're at home, and you have plenty of things to deal with yourself, but these are problems that are not going away. I actually worry, especially around climate change, that people say, like, oh, look, we're driving a lot less, the air is cleaner, it's all good, don't worry about it. And it's almost like people, it's not as top of mind anymore. And people feel like, oh yeah, we can very quickly just change our behavior and be good. But actually what I'm seeing now is I really worry it's gonna come back hard, and it's gonna get a lot worse because people are gonna have a tendency to actually to isolate more and use their cars more, and just in general, consumption will be much more, less sharing, less public spaces, and a lot more private. And so by default, it becomes all just more heavy on the planet.
And more waste. Everyone's doing takeout, and plastic straws are back in because anything. You can't take your own grocery bags to the store anymore. All these things are putting us behind.
Yeah, true. No, look, I think one of the things that is encouraging for me, like, so Share the Meal actually like has just had the record day of in the history of the existence of the app about 2 weeks ago, where over 500,000 meals have been shared in one day, and which clearly also shows you, so people care about this. Like, they still, and yes, we're also raising funds for providing food in COVID-19 affected crisis, yes, but people do care about it, and it's, I think this is also where we need to share some of the good news. Like, and I acknowledge there's an issue with, like, how, like, for instance, like how this is being broadcast in media, and like how this is actually being taken on, where it's like, yes, because if there's lots of things happening, and like we're all studying, like, statistics on pandemics all the day, like, right? So like there's a lot of other content that's not being shared, but I have the hope, and I'm hopeful that people actually embrace this. And like, despite this, like, it's really horrible for a lot of people, actually. Like, people are affected, like, either through, people in their family that are sick, or maybe people have lost jobs. Like, I think on the one hand, there's lots of people who are affected by the current crisis. On the other hand, I do see also that there is a lot of people who now, in particular, have the goodwill of, I need to help, I want to do something, and then it depends a little bit on what people are excited about. Like, so this is why, like, Xenia, like, I think there are people who are, like, most excited about climate change. There are people who are excited about, like, I want to end hunger. No child should go to bed hungry. And there might be others who say, like, I want to provide education for everybody. Like, so like everybody should have a chance in life. And maybe I mean, before we go to like how our viewers can actually engage with this challenge, maybe as one last question, like, I mean, just like for some of these biggest challenges, like, what's your outlook, Xenia? Like, where do you think, like, you want to take this, right? Like, so like, this is your vision where this can go, right? Like,
yeah, well, I think that this is a wake-up call for humanity to build its own resilience. I would love to see a human resilience movement start out of this that is focused on our biggest and most critical threats to humanity: climate change, water scarcity, food insecurity, pandemics, of course, but also let's take it a little bit into outer space, like we like to at Xprize, but also, asteroid impacts, possible asteroid impacts, and that kind of deflection, artificial intelligence, and where AI can go. These are kind of the known sort of critical threats to humanity. We need to use this pandemic as an opportunity to boost our resilience to all of these things. And that's where I would love to see this go. First and foremost, okay, we deal with the COVID crisis, we learn from it. We capture the learnings from it in playbooks around the world that we can then use again and again for different kinds of crises. This kind of crises gives rise to different thoughts on leadership. Like, what does it really mean to lead through this? And I've been doing a lot of writing on being a chaos pilot. How do you be a leader for a new human resilience movement, right? How are you able to navigate and deliver and achieve success when the world around you is falling apart? What does it mean to be a non-traditional leader and a chaos pilot in that particular instance? So that's where I would like to see it. A new movement that focuses on water, food, climate, health, of course, and also technology in the sense of where AI could and could not go for the betterment of humanity.
Well said, Xenia. And I feel like chaos pilot describes my day-to-day activities. Actually, very well. So, Thomas, what about you? What's your vision in this regard? Where is the world gonna go?
Maybe just because I'm so deep in my my little world and in my bubble. I'm glad Xenia provides the grand vision. For me, it's much more. I'm looking at our users at home, everyone in front of the screens, and what I'm seeing. My vision here is that we're breaking down some fundamental assumptions that have actually holding so many people back. And the assumptions have been: I have to be in the same place all the time. I have to live in this expensive neighborhood to be successful. I need access to this high quality education in this bubble, in this little town on the East Coast. Otherwise I can't, be successful. There's only one way to get the badge and have to go to the Ivy League schools to become X, Y, and Z. The fact that we have made these assumptions based on, I guess, decades and decades of just how we've all been doing things for hundreds of years. Hopefully this is an opportunity to show people that this is actually not the case. If you don't, there's certain barriers of privilege that you just, by merit of having been born in a certain place or into a certain class, hopefully this shows people that we can be so much more open to just people doing good things, and it doesn't matter where they are. I think a small thing, and this is gonna sound really crazy, but for me, just having seen this recently come to life is in our privileged society, in the small instance, oftentimes now we go to our services, we go to the yoga class, or we consume certain services in person. And now everything moves digital, and people say, yes, okay, I'm going to support my yoga class because I'm going to dial into the local yoga instructor studio. But why? In some instances, why don't I make use and support somebody from in the other part of the world that can teach the same thing, right? And they can give me the exact same service. And it actually doesn't matter where this person is. Why do I assume this person has to be in proximity to me? Why is it not about who can teach the best, right? Why don't we have this marketplace of skills and of just people doing great work, and it doesn't matter where they are? And I think that for me is so compelling about this opportunity now. And I just hope we don't go back to our old ways and just then again be so localized and so married to, just this. Oftentimes I think having this physical presence to do certain things, to become a certain person, is that's what I feel like this is the opportunity here, to break down these barriers. And there's so many ways to do this, and technology is just the catalyst to help with that. and as much as possible, just get people access to that basic technology, and then they can take it themselves from there.
No, it really, you have great complementary aspects of, I guess, a new world vision, like where I think where I would bring in like the vision for like, what does it mean for the activism or tech volunteering? Like, I do hope that, you know, on the one hand, like what we've been seeing from like, you know, Fridays for Future, like young people getting engaged and saying like, we want to stand up, we want to actually do something, we want to contribute towards a better world, we want to take beyond like our little bubble, as you were calling it. I think that's really encouraging. I also think that we will see more and more people who like, you know, maybe tech entrepreneurs, maybe people who are working in large tech companies who are saying like, look, with the power that we have, we can contribute to something that's way bigger than what we're doing right now, and actually making an impact for, you know, some of the most vulnerable. It might be the local community, it might be somewhere across the globe. And I think really taking this to like, okay, like how can we build that community and like people engaging in that future where like, we know that certain problems are solvable, and they are solvable if we put the best and brightest, you know, minds towards that. And like, you know, sometimes like I'm struggling with that when people are like super excited about doing hackathons on the weekend, and then afterwards they go back to their day job where they forget what they have done on the weekend. But then it's like, you know, sometimes, and I think there's more and more that actually happening. People start social impact startups. People want to do something where they want to work or actually offer their networks to people who do that. And like, so actually getting that engagement of like, I guess the next level of, you know, social entrepreneurs to maybe we'll find this social impact unicorn. I think that's where I'm really excited about this. But now let's close it off with a round of like, okay, Xenia and Thomas. Okay, so out to everybody watching, like what can people possibly do? How can they get engaged? Like what could they be doing? Xenia, let's start with you.
Well, at this point, just about this is the time, you know, here, when we look back on this time, everybody's going to ask you, so what did you do during the pandemic? What did you do? How did you make hay out of this crisis, you know, this opportunity? And I don't mean commercially, you know, I just mean intellectually, creatively, artistically, in any which way. What did you do? Maybe spiritually as well, you know, and I think everyone should have an answer for that. So I think that's a big question I would put out to people. What do you want to how do you want to remember this time? What are you going to do right now? I have friends who are doing a startup during this time, during this downtime. I have other friends who are just really deepening their relationship with family. Others who are just serving at the food bank and growing food and selling and you know, giving it away, not even selling it, right? So I think right now, this is such a momentous time in history. Don't waste it. Don't just read another ebook or watch, you know, another Netflix series. There'll be plenty of winter storms for you to go do that, right? You know, some other illness or the flu for you to go do that. Now's the time to really exert your innate creativity, your intellectualism, as well as your spirituality. Now's the time to bring that out and exercise it and do it in any which way that makes you most happy and comfortable. That's what I would say.
Wow, that's a good call to action. Thomas, what do you think?
Now I feel bad if only had baked one loaf of bread, you know, all the last 2 months. But at least I'm some sourdough activity started. But yeah, so I think plus one to what Tina said. I do think there's a huge opportunity for us to not just say yes. This is a difficult time, and we go through all the Netflix catalog as fast as possible. But really think about how can I make use of this opportunity and make it work for myself. In some instances, just use the being closed off, being sheltered in place, and say it's almost like every time I switch on the TV, it's like, well, what actually could I be doing now? What is an opportunity maybe to put myself out of the comfort zone and just try something? And what's the worst that can happen? You know, it's just you try something maybe for a couple of days and then it doesn't work. For me, what technology enables here is you can basically have a great idea, and then technology gives you the tools to start, maybe learn from others. And you don't have to subscribe to like a fancy master class or something which is very popular in the States. all it takes is go on YouTube and you find a creator and you just watch a video and see what are they doing, how have they started, maybe just learn how they overcome some of the initial obstacles and give it a go. And if it's anything around like maybe arts and crafts at home, or you just learn a new skill, you want to start learn how to code an app, whatever it may be, give yourself the time and space and just try it, and if it's just one weekend, you have nowhere to go, you have no responsibilities, and it's easier for folks that don't have kids, understand, and that they're very different circumstances for everybody. But if you manage to give you that space and say, you're not missing out on anything out there right now, it's just not, and use the opportunity and basically make that first step, and you'll see how quickly you can actually just learn new things, do something new you never thought possible, and all it took was a weekend to get started. And I think the tools are out there. So much stuff does not require a single dollar. You just learn from people. People are so happy to share during this time. You're going to see a lot of community. You see so many forums online to just help you and support you with whatever creativity you have.
Then let me add to that exactly where you've left off in terms of like, what specifically does it mean for anybody out there who's watching this now and like say like, hey, I want to get engaged, but what do I do now? So I guess one thing that I encourage everybody to think about, like they say, hey, I want to do something, like I want to get engaged, is like, I would say like, really listen to yourself, to your heart, like, what do you care about, right? What are the values that you have? What excites you that you actually want to put your own time and your energy into work? It's like, don't do something because it's your friend. I mean, maybe do it, like maybe if it might be a good idea, but you should really care about it. Like, and if you don't, then also I think it's a fair thing to say like, look, I really don't care about this cause, about this issue. Like, I rather care about something else. That's totally fine. And I think we just have to acknowledge it. Like, not everybody has to care about the same thing, but there's so many challenges out there, and there's so many people on this planet. There must be more innovative ideas, and I'm sure they are out there somewhere, maybe simmering in somebody's head about like, about to be born, right? So like, it's really something that's we have to acknowledge, like, okay, find out what is it that you're really excited about. Second step is, do a little bit of research, like go on like the internet, go on LinkedIn and find some groups, contact people that you know who know other people who know people, and actually find out, like, I mean, Xprize is a great place to start. Like, I mean, Google has google.org where they also look at things. We as World Food Program, we have WFP Innovation Accelerator, as people can go on a LinkedIn page and like check out what it is and like get some inspiration about what's actually going on, what resonates with you, what doesn't, and then think about what could it be that is actually something that you can contribute. And then, sometimes it could be, I need to start a startup because maybe that's the best thing, how you could really contribute. Maybe sometimes it's like, well, you keep your highly paid job, all you need to do is donate money, go do that too if that excites you. But sometimes it might be, maybe there's something like volunteering, or you're in a company and you and your colleagues can do part-time work on the side for, causes, for startups that actually want to move something forward. And I think I'm encouraging everybody to think about what it is. Oftentimes people are telling me, I really want to do something, but like, I don't know how or what. And it's like, step one is always reaching out, and also just find out, like, it's not every single opportunity is the one that may work with Xprize and Elon Musk, but maybe it is. Maybe you have the best idea and you're submitting it in one of the challenges, and you will actually be winning a lot of money also by solving one of the world's biggest challenges. And I'm just encouraging everybody, like, think about what you can do, and like sometimes it's actually the hard things that will really make that step change. Now, any final thoughts from Xenia, Thomas, like anything you want to share?
Go out there, don't waste this time. Do something momentous, just brave and big. And I mean, everyone's too busy worrying about COVID. Nobody will care about your failure. Just now's the time to fail at a spectacular level too, Just go out there and do something.
That's right. No, I couldn't agree more. Just go out and do it. What's the worst that can happen, right? Worst case, just blame it on COVID and the situation, you move on.
Exactly.
Nice. And well, so I think like it was a real pleasure talking with you, Xenia and Thomas. Like, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for everybody watching this also online. Go reach out, check out our websites. And I want to say thank you, and I'll put up the information again on the screen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you to Southwest, and hope to see you all in person next year. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Goodbye.